Welcome everybody. How is the sound in the back? Good? Okay. Nobody can hear the gym next door. Thank you so much for making your way to this part of town on a Monday night to hear Jason and Sarah talk about this amazing, impactful project that started in the lower 48 and is now in Fairbanks. I'm personally very excited to hear more about this because we obviously get to hang out with the art every day for the month of February, and I can't wait to learn more and then pass it on to all the visitors. I don't want to keep you long, so here's Jason.
Hey guys, I'm Jason, and I also wander a lot. Can you hear me in the back if I just stand right here and talk? Do you think you're good with the camera? Awesome. Well, I'm probably going to do that because I'm going to wander around for a while. But I'm Jason Williamson. I'm the one who started the project a few years ago in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Had this idea to combine ministry and photography. I'm a pastor. That wasn't always my career. I spent a decade in digital media, and over time, I entered the world of missions and ministry, and basically what happened was I have this great love for photography. I've been doing it since I was 16, and I was a photography major in college. I began to realize that no one was going to pay me to do the kind of photography that I wanted to do, so I entered the world of advertising. And from there, I entered the job that I still have today that I absolutely am in love with as being a missions pastor. And I wanted an opportunity to combine my passions. And I had this idea based on a project that I saw in London where they allowed photographers that were homeless to contribute to their community in some really neat ways. And so I just thought about how cool that would be as an opportunity to accomplish three tasks. I wanted to be able to give people hope when they were really without hope. And they were a lot of times at the lowest they've been, and we meet a lot of people that are having like the worst day of their life. And I wanted to share with them the hope that I've experienced in my life. And I also wanted to give them the satisfaction that comes with creating art. I love when I take a photograph and I can stare at it and study it and see something that may be worthy to hang on a wall or to share with someone else. And I just got a lot of satisfaction in sharing my perspective on the world with everybody else. And then the third part of our goal was that we wanted to allow our community to see what was really going on in the streets. I found myself driving through parts of town that I was skirting areas where the homeless were. I wasn't seeing the people. I was avoiding places because maybe in my mind I thought it was unsafe, or I wasn't welcome there, or I had nothing in common with these folks. But with this shift in my career, I needed my heart to break for the homeless. And I needed my community to follow that as well. And so I spent a lot of time praying about that. I spent a lot of time just asking for my heart to melt and to reach the different people that maybe I would want to reach before than I ever had before. And that happened. I went and I toured our homeless shelter, and I met this guy, and we hit it off, and we became good friends, and we really enjoyed each other's company, and I helped him, and he helped me, and it was a great relationship. And that got me into this community, into the homeless community, and from there I began to serve in some other ways in our community, but then I had this idea for the project, and I wanted Spartanburg to see the people for more than just the guy on the street. And I wanted them to get to the point where they saw somebody by name and they could tell that Scotty got a haircut today. Or they could see that maybe I haven't seen David in a while because maybe he's gotten a job, or that they're housed now. And that they can build relationships and understand people better. And I thought, the medium that I use to do that is through a camera to get my perspective. And so I decided that I wanted to use this crude little disposable camera that's kind of junky, but it levels the playing field. Somebody doesn't have a fancy lens, someone else doesn't have like $1,000 smartphone. Everybody has the same camera and the same opportunity to create something awesome from their own perspective. And so we gave out over 100 cameras during our first project, and we asked the photographers, give us a week. We want you to take these 27 photos, and some of them were younger than me, and I had to teach them how to use the cameras because they'd never seen them before. And so we said, we just want you to photograph your life. And we realized that we need access, and we also need perspective from the people there. I could never have the access to the homeless life that they were living. Through relationships, maybe I could get in and go visit an encampment or get to know somebody through serving in a soup kitchen, but I never had the access there that I would want to tell a story. But the people who were on the street, they had the access, and they also had the trust and the permission because they were there. They were with their friends. So we said, listen, we know that you may have a place that you call your own that you don't want anyone to know about. So don't photograph that. If you don't want to be in the picture, that's fine. If you don't want your friend to be in the picture, don't take a picture of them. So just use kind of common sense with that. And take whatever you want. But we just said, take 5 days, bring it back to us. We've got care back for you. We want to take your portrait so that you can be a part of this exhibition. And we want you to have a voice. We want you to create something beautiful. And we want to give you that platform to do it so the community can hear from you. I've been a part of a lot of different fundraisers and benefits and banquets and all kinds of stuff. And every time there's always somebody there talking about the people that they're trying to reach. Whether you're in orphan care in Uganda or something else, there's usually a representative there talking about the people. I've never seen a place where the people that need the help are the people that are also doing the communicating. And this was their opportunity to do that. We gave them the platform and the camera. And somebody, never read comments online, but when the project started happening, it started going viral, and we had several articles and videos that got very popular. And I looked at one of the comments, and one guy said, and we're going to look at a lot of photos in just a second, but I think this is important. One guy said, I think the last thing these people need is a camera. I was like, physically, yes, they need shelter and food and clothing and a job and an opportunity. But I think what propels them forward, the best thing I can do is give them encouragement and hope and joy. And there was a guy that I met on our very first project, and he told me that for a week, I had a different purpose. I felt different. And so we gave everyone a shirt, and on the back of the shirt it says photographer. They're not homeless guy. They're not the guy I met at the soup kitchen. They're a photographer. They have the same credentials that I do as a photographer. And I'm a Christian. As a Christian, I believe that there's a creator. And I believe that creator made me in his image. And so therefore, I'm a creator. Because God made me, and he made me to be kind of like him. I can create stuff too. And that's why I love the project that happened, because we're giving people a platform to make art that they're proud of and that they can share in. And that gave me an opportunity to encourage them through scripture and prayer and acknowledging that the hope that I found with my relationship with Jesus is the relationship that they can have, and that the worst day of their life doesn't have to be every day. They can have hope. And it all came from a disposable camera. And so the project started getting momentum. So I want to show you some of the photos. And we asked the photographers that we chose to be in the exhibition. We showed, so that we showed every single photo. We had a 4x6 of every single photo from every single camera. We pasted them on the wall next to the disposable camera body. And we chose 20 photos. In just about all of our shows, we chose 20 photos to be blown up and exhibited in a unique way. And we asked the photographers that were represented there, you title it, you name the photo, whatever you want to, you tell us why you took it. And so it was a really interesting perspective. On our website that you'll see around here, you can go to the individual projects and you can look at their descriptions. But I just want to give you a little bit of an insight on the generalities that we saw. And I waited way too long to click this button. There we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about different categories of photos that came up and give you some insight on maybe why they took them. But we had a panel of judges. They were people from the homeless community. There were other photographers, people from the media, a city councilwoman in one of them. And we just wanted a wide variety of perspectives that helped us pick out the top ones. Really, really hard thing to do, but really, really fun. So some people showed us things that we would never see before. This was a mattress out in the woods, and this is Ray. Ray's my friend, and he said that some homeless people have places in different parts of town, and depending on where they're at, that's where they would stay. And this is a mattress in the woods somewhere in my hometown. I have no idea where this is. Never seen it. I don't really want to see it, but it kind of devastated us when we saw this. This is Troll. His real name is Dale, but everyone calls him Troll. It's not a knock on him, but he goes by Troll. He lives under a bridge. So when we saw this picture, we thought this is Troll's living room. There's a nightstand, there's a radio on it, there's a dog, there's a chair. But then we looked, and this is a pillar that holds up a bridge. And this is foliage outside. So Troll had recreated a bedroom underneath a bridge. And he's one of the guys that he will always live outside. He doesn't necessarily want help. He's not adversarial, super kind. I sat with him at the library and I said, Dale, what do you love to do? And he said, I write poetry. I've always wanted to be a published poet. And so I was like, well, tell me one of your poems. So he takes out his book and he rips out a page and he hands it to me. It was pretty good. Some of it was a little bizarre, but some of it was pretty good. And so I took one of his poems and I posted it on Instagram and Facebook, and 11,000 people saw it, and hundreds of people liked it. And so the next time I ran into him, I said, guess what? 10,000 people have read your poem now. You're a published poet. And he was so excited about that. Dale actually won our Greenville, South Carolina project. The way that we voted when we first started, we actually, in our gallery space, we put a lockbox next to every single photograph. And people could vote with money. And we were in there for a month. And so the three photos that raised the most money got prizes that were specific to them. We don't give out cash. We don't want to aid anyone's addictions. We don't want to give them anything that would allow them to do something inappropriate. And so we gave them a certain dollar amount based on first, second, third, and we asked them, how can we help you? And then we went and bought them stuff that was specific to them. We had guys that wanted, one guy wanted stuff to detail a car so that he could work. It was amazing. It took me 3 tries to get Dale to tell me something he wanted. First time, I said, what can help you? You've got $250. What can help you? And he said, I want dog food. Okay, we'll get you dog food. I said, what else do you want? He said, my best friend needs an air mattress. I said, done. What do you want? And he would get, he was so selfless. These are the things that Dale owns. And he could not tell me a single want that he had. And I just loved his heart. And so eventually he wanted a radio that ran on batteries so he could listen to music. So he got that. And then with the $140 balance that was left, I tried to get him a gift card to the dollar store. And my credit card got returned because no one buys $140 gift cards to the dollar store. So people are showing us stuff that we don't normally see. This is from Raleigh, North Carolina, where we did a project. And so this woman showed us a variety of places within her encampment. Kind of her bedroom, a bathroom. She showed us kind of a cooking area. So stuff that we would never see before. And I think there's a stereotype that maybe people just they eat at McDonald's or they go to the soup kitchen for all their meals, but it's home cooking for them. This woman, she had a really boring roll of film, but she had 2 pictures that she went out of her way to take. And this was one of them. She called this her prayer bear. And when you push it, it sings a little lullaby, now I lay me down to sleep kind of thing. And so she has this with her at all times. just reminds her to pray. And this was really important to her, that people showed us their belongings and the things that mattered most to them. And so everything else that she took was walking up the bus line, getting on the bus, walking back from the bus line, coming back from work. But she went out of her way to take this one. She made the bed, this nice pillow, a towel that was there. And so she went out of her way to do that. She wanted to show us what was important to her. This is my good friend David. We're going to talk about him a little bit later too. But the thing that drove David was his daughter. And he was homeless. When I met him, he was like at an all-time low. But he was driven by his daughter Lucy. And so that kept him, honestly, he said that it kept him alive. Some people were very emotional, and they got to show us things that they loved. She actually won our Spartanburg project, the very first one that we ever did. And then when we did Spartanburg a second time, she had a job, a place to stay, and a car, and she was working at a grocery store. She filled her trunk up with food and drove it to the soup kitchen and donated it all because she wanted to give back to the community that encouraged her. So this was out back at the shelter, and her quote was that, "I don't see race or color or anything else." She said, "We're all family here. We're all in this together." And this was she said the love is good. That was the title of this. The love is good. This is my friend George. This is a very prominent park in Greenville called Falls Park. Every tourist who's ever been there went on the suspension bridge. It's a very rare bridge. It's like the only one of its kind in the world. Everyone has this photograph. But this is called My Park because 20 years before this park was this park, George used to shower here. And now, you'd probably get arrested. But before this all got developed, it was a great gentrification example about where homeless people have been and where we're pushing them out to. So everyone has this picture, but no one has it from his perspective. This is Dale again, and the thing that I loved about this, he shared a really intimate moment with us when he was naming this and telling me why he took it. His mom just passed away, and he said it reminded him of her in the path that they used to walk together at some point in his life. This is another one that was really interesting, and this one was one of our top 3 in Greenville. She wanted steel-toe boots, I think for her boyfriend, so that he could get a job. Her name's Crystal, and this was a beautiful alley between 2 buildings, and just gorgeous fall scenery. And she said that she loved this, even though it was kind of bittersweet. This was fascinating. We've done this in several other places, and I'll tell you a little bit about those as we go. But she's the only photographer I've ever met who had a title for every picture before she snapped it. She knew exactly what she wanted to call everything. And so this one, she said, "I actually slept between these 2 trees. So I want to not like this street, but I love this street in the way that it looks." Some people showed us kind of some other uncomfortable things in their life. This woman was actually, this is Mildred, and this is her friend, and she knew her from another shelter, but she was actually moving into this shelter, and all of her belongings were in this car, including her child. And so everything that she owned was in this trunk. And, this was basically like move-in day for her. And, so it was, again, kind of a bittersweet thing where we're seeing that all of her belongings are in this trunk, and she's kind of struggling, but she does have the hope of getting into this other shelter. I don't know what happened at the other one, if she was asked to leave or maybe she had just run out her time, but she had an opportunity here to get on her feet. And Mildred, she wanted to make sure that she kind of honored her friend. She asked her permission if she could photograph her, and they had a great relationship. Because just like we saw earlier, they were in this together. Annette, the woman who took the Love is Good picture, they were all in this together. They were all very tight-knit in that community. And we got to see that through a lot of the relationships. And people caring for one another, even though, they really didn't have, it's a great opportunity for somebody to be selfish. But there's people that are loving each other and caring for each other. This is another one that Dale took, and I loved this photo. Because I make eggs all the time, but I've never made it outside like this. And he called it good eating. And this was kind of his message, like I said earlier, that he wanted people to know how he lives. And he's not always mooching off other people. He's not trying to beg for food or anything like that. Like, he's going to go get his stuff, whether it's with food stamps or something else, and he's going to come back home and he's going to cook it. You know, good eating. This is, just blanked on his name. He has an awesome sense of humor. If you can't see that in the back, on this cardboard piece of paper, on a cardboard box, it says "Home Sweet Home." So he said, "This is my office, and it's my home." He said, "I'm trying to sell it so I can get a bigger office." So he had a great sense of humor about it. But the cool thing about this photo, this was from Greenville, South Carolina, and I was standing, he came to our opening reception, and I was standing next to him, and we watched a guy pull a $100 bill out and put it in his box. And I said, "That was $100. It's like, what? How does that make you feel?" And as we try to be really sensitive, there is a perception that this can be exploiting of the photographers. People want to know, like, the money in the box, did they get it? No. The money in the box, the photographers don't get, just to answer that now. The money that came from the box all got donated to the soup kitchens and the shelters and all of the places where they got their services. We helped fund that. And the reason that we chose not to have that go to those photographers is really a sense of pride. There were some photos, like Crystal's, it's beautiful. And that caused people to vote for it because it was a very beautiful picture. Other images, like maybe the one that we saw first of the mattress in the woods, it's heartbreaking. There's photos that have kids in them. Their parents took pictures of their own children. And that's heartbreaking. So people may want to give money to that because it pulls at their heartstrings. But then there's other pictures that are part of the project and the exhibition because from an artistic standpoint and making a well-rounded exhibition, we wanted to tell a full story. So when a guy named Steven takes a picture of the roach bodies in his light fixture in his government housing, like, that's gross and nobody's going to vote for it. And not many people did. But it needed to be in the show because we needed to see the conditions. So it would be devastating if I handed him $4. So we chose to have the photographers not get any of the money, but we wanted to help the places where they're already getting the services. And that guy, Steven, with tears in his eyes, he said, "I love that this is going back to help the soup kitchen because I can never give back to them on my own. I'll never have enough money to part with to give to them." So he loved that something that he was a part of went to help the places where he got services. So this one came in second. He's the one that wanted like a buffer and car wax and stuff like that because he wanted to get it, use that to make money. This was awesome. There's a very long backstory that I won't get sidetracked on, but his best friend, this guy named Chris, when we did the project for the very first time in Spartanburg, I got a phone call and an email from a woman in Las Vegas, and she said, "Hey, I need to know if you've seen my grandson." And I was like, "I don't know." So she sent me an old photo, and she sent me his name, and I was like, "He's not one of our photographers." And she said, No, I don't think he's one of your photographers. That's not his personality. I want to know if he's in the background somewhere. And so I found Chris. And I found him at the library, and I said, "Man, here's your grandma. She loves you. She wants you to call her." He's like, "I don't know." And he was like 19. And so I talked to him for a little bit. I didn't get much out of him. And then I called his grandma back, and I said, "Hey, I found Chris. He's doing okay." She said, "Well, I want to give money to the project." And I said, "Awesome, but like I don't want any money. Why don't you send me money and I'll get something for Chris? Or you send me a backpack with a bunch of hygiene stuff in it." So she did that, and we got Chris some gift certificates to the gas station and some restaurants. And I found Chris again, and I guess his favorite color is purple, so it's a purple backpack filled with stuff. And so like a few weeks later, I was driving down the road, and I saw the purple backpack. And I called his grandma, and I said, "Hey, guess what? Saw the purple backpack. Chris is doing good." So she said, "I had a dream last night. And I was up after that dream all night, and I was wondering what Chris was up to." She's like, "That was an answer to my prayer that you saw him again." And so he has talked to her since then. This is his best friend, and they were kind of on the street together, another young guy. So they found this dog. I think the dog's name may have been Crystal. They found this dog, and they wanted to take care of it. So they basically adopted this stray dog. And this was called Dog Days of Summer, was the name of this one. This came in first place in the second Spartanburg project. And local pet store gave them a whole bunch of food for free and everything else to take care of the dog. And then actually they got to the point where they couldn't take care of her anymore, so the dog store adopted this dog. So, again, they're being super generous when they have nothing and they're taking care of the dog. So folks love to see what that was all about. This woman had been homeless in the past. She was housed when we met, but she had gone back to this car wash. On the front of this area, these are vending machines where someone can get like detergent or whatever to like wash your own car. But then this guy turned it into his bedroom and had an awning. This is the thing that you would put in the front of on your windshield when you like go away from your car and to keep the heat out. So like that's his rain guard. And so she knew he was there. She brought him food and stuff like that, asked him if she could photograph his home. And so, another person who was homeless taking care of the homeless. And I love that photo because I wanted to really challenge the people in our community that if this is going on, like why aren't you helping anybody? Like who's the person that you're going to care for next? Another guy, he's been homeless, met him at the soup kitchen. He knew that this woman was a diabetic. She was one of our photographers. She's got her shirt on. But she was passed out because her blood sugar was low. So he was checking on her. She saw the photo. She knows that she's in this photo. But he went there and saw her and wanted to check on her. And he took the picture because he wanted people to know that there's folks out there that need help. Whether they're diabetic, they've got mental issues, they've got other things that are going on in their life that they just need help. And so I love that he was caring for her. This was Crystal again, and this was like her boyfriend took this picture, and it was like a really bad day. She like threw everything out of her purse, and all she wanted to do was like find $1 to get a Coke. And she said, "I wish there were less days like this." And so I just appreciated that they were very vulnerable and willing to show us a moment of frustration in their life, because my moment of frustration is like when my kids don't get ready on time. And we have to eat breakfast in the car on the way to school, and maybe I don't have enough time to go get coffee or something, but like she wants to have a drink because she hasn't had a drink in a long time. It's like a totally different kind of perspective and frustration. This woman took a picture of her friend that was at a camp with her, and their campsite, someone came and shredded their tent, and so bugs got in. And these were all like massive welts from mosquitoes that ate up his back. And it was like really hot because this is in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so he's really sweaty and he has all these bites on him. So it was terrible. This is probably what I think is the most striking photo of any of the projects that we've done. This was in Raleigh also. And this was this guy's first night of homelessness. This photographer knew him, and he had just come from the hospital, and he stole the bed sheet, and he laid down on the sidewalk and fell asleep. And this picture helped me kind of reinforce a belief that I have as a photographer, and the style of photography that I do is street photography. I want to capture life on the street. I want to capture the candid moments from people. I want to capture life as it happens. I do family portraits and things like that, but I've done a couple of weddings, and like it takes a special kind of person that I am not to do weddings all the time. I don't want to pose anybody. I don't want to do any of that. I like stuff as it happens. But for the last several years since we started the project, I made sure that I stopped photographing situations like this. And this was kind of a good reminder for me. But we felt like it was important to put in the project because I wanted other people to have that realization too, that it's not a photo op, and it doesn't need to be something that gets shared online and look at this city or look at this guy or whatever. But this is probably the worst day in this guy's life. And I think it's powerful, and it should move us to do something. It should move us to take care of the people that are at the soup kitchen where we went today, and we went to Stone Soup and had an awesome morning. Had a great opportunity to talk to a lot of people and hopefully encourage some folks and pray with the guy. And I just think like a lot of people ask, what can we do to help? And I think that giving somebody a sandwich is a great thing. I think that making sure that they've got gloves when it's cold and water when it's warm, and I think that's all important. But I think a lot of times what people need the most is just to know that they're loved and that they're cared for and that they're like a person with the rest of us. And so I just want to talk to people. Just like I'm talking to you, I want to talk to the guy that's been homeless for a while, or the woman who's just become homeless for like a terrible situation. Like I just want to be an ear. I want to try to be an encouragement. And so I would just say that to any of you as well, that like help them by talking to them and engaging with them and letting them know that you can be like a force in their life that can propel them into stuff that's like really good. And I think that when we also help the places, like I don't give anyone money. I was asked for money today, and I'm not going to give him money. Got a gift card from Fred Myers, so like he can go get some food. So that's a great thing. But I want to support the places that are taking care of them already. So the project caught on in Spartanburg, and some folks that are on my team at church, they have a daughter who's a school teacher. She teaches 4th grade at a low-income elementary school, and she said, I want to do this project with my 4th graders. And so we went to Hendricks Elementary, and we did this project, and we gave out 108 cameras, and it was their final assignment of the year. It gave me an opportunity to come in and share with them about homelessness in our town, and we got to talk about the 1,200 plus people in our region and the 600 people in our city that are homeless at any given time. And the kids got to learn a lot about it. And so we told the kids, we had, again, teach them how to use the camera. Like, you don't get to look at the back and swipe and like delete and edit. And this is just a disposable camera. And so we said, photograph your life. And so we got a lot of pets. We got a lot of like fidget spinners. We got some mom and dad. And like, I was really hoping this dude liked this picture because he's way bigger than I am. And so, it was awesome. This kid won. There was a voting thing, not with money, but there's a voting thing that night. And they had all of the kids' parents came. And every kid had one photo from their role that was framed big. And then we had like the top 20. And this was them. And this kid won like a camera that our local photo store donated. But like his family went on a hike together. So I love that our camera brought his family together for this outing. And so they went somewhere and found a waterfall. So that was awesome. So 4th graders. And I think we're getting ready to do it again. I think they just got some of their funding done. Charlestown, Massachusetts, right outside Boston. There's close to 20,000 people in 1 square mile. We partner with a guy who started a new church there, and he's a guy from our area, and he moved up there, and there's no homeless in Charlestown. There certainly are in Boston, but there's not in Charlestown. But in Charlestown, there's 3 very different groups of people. There's people who have been there for generations, and they're the townies. There's the yuppies who have been there for like maybe a few years, and it's kind of like this new money and new perspective. And then there's the largest government housing complex in Boston, is right there in Charlestown. So 3 very different groups of people who don't typically talk to each other. So we gave out a bunch of cameras, and we said, we want you to photograph the neighborhood that you love so much. They all had neighborhood pride. So we said, photograph your neighborhood, whatever you like the best about it. And so it brought all of these people together, and we had this great reception, and we had framed photos, and then we posted, again, all of the photos together. And 5 minutes into the reception, there's a really prominent guy in the community, and then there's one of our photographers. The prominent guy's looking at all the stuff, and I'm talking to him, and he did some work with the New England Patriots, which like didn't win me over because I'm a Dolphins fan, and he's at the Super Bowl ring, and he's like gesturing in front of me, and I was like, Tom, really wish you'd stop doing that, because your team is way better than my team. And so this woman overheard that. She said, you're Tom. I've been meaning to meet you. And I was like, that's exactly what our project was about in their community, was bringing people together that had different perspectives on things. So this was Charlestown. We're going to do that again this fall. And I want to end with just like 3 really short stories, and then I want to let Sarah talk. And I don't want to go over our time. This is Jack. Jack is from Greenville. Jack lived on the streets in Greenville for years. He was our first ever volunteer and photographer. So Jack was a church member with the church that we partnered with there, and he took this photograph that was underneath an overpass. There's a guy in here, and then there's like all of this junk. And so Jack helped us register people and hand out cameras because most of them were his friends. He'd known them. Jack worked, he had a house, and in his house, I think he probably broke some laws. He was housing a bunch of homeless people, and they were his friends. And so Jack's backstory is that when he was a kid, he huffed paint. He started huffing paint when he was like 12. This is a picture that a guy at a shelter took of Jack. He is high as a kite, and he's covered in gold paint, spray paint that he was huffing. This was from 1989. This looks bizarre. And there was a guy who was a manager at a Walmart. And he came and talked to Jack one day. Jack was in the paint section. He said, "Jack, you got food to eat today?" He said, "Nope, no money for food." He said, "Jack, you got money for paint today?" He said, "Yep, I got money for paint." And it broke that manager's heart. And so the manager said, "Are you living on the street?" Jack said, "Yeah." So the manager brought Jack into his home and fed him dinner. He and his wife developed a relationship with him. And then the guy wrote Jack a letter. And he said, "I want you to keep this in your jacket pocket." And the letter, this is kind of like before cell phone stuff, I guess. This was probably a little bit later. But Jack kept this. He had this in his pocket, and he let me take a picture of it. Basically, this says, "Dear police officer, Jack is allowed to sleep in my trucks. If you have a problem with that, you call me." And so this guy, who's passed away now, he met Jack, he was sympathetic to Jack, and he made himself vulnerable, probably risked his own job by letting homeless addicts stay in his truck. But Jack, as a result of that, got sober, got saved, started going to church, started getting involved with the homeless community in a good way. And then Jack is the one who is probably the most influential with us handing cameras out and allowing this to go through. And so kind of my message to the folks that were there in Greenville, my message to you is like, who's your Jack? Like, who's the person that you're willing to stick your neck out there for and help? This is another guy, this was Ray. So we have part of our evolution is very early on when we did 2 projects, people are like, you should make a book. So we made a book. We have a couple of them that are for sale tonight. All the money from this goes back into us doing this project in other places. Sarah's got some stuff too that she'll talk to you about later, and that goes back to this community. So top 40 pictures from our first couple projects, and then like 40 never before seen pictures. So 80 pictures in here, and 10% of them were Ray's. Ray was very, very gifted. I was very excited to spend some time with Ray. But while we were putting together our first project, he had 3 of the top 20. He got arrested for some not so great stuff. And so Ray was in jail. And so I started writing Ray some letters. And he was inmate number 283456. And so I had to write him that way. And so we corresponded for a while, and then he got back into our community, and at our detention center you can video chat. So I went and video chatted with him. And he said, "I hope and pray that God does use me to help others. I felt so good doing the project. I want to give back to a society that I spent so much energy taking from." And God, he had never taken a photo before. And he has this like untapped ability, and he acknowledged that. And he just felt that through God's grace, a lot of things were going right in his life, even though he's saying that from jail. But he got a lot of perspective from that. And so, I hope that I will get to see Ray outside and give him another camera. But so good relationships have come from that. But then I want to go back to my friend David. This was Easter of last year, and I had the privilege of baptizing David. And that was a really big deal for him and for me, because we developed a special friendship. And David shared some thoughts with me. I told him that I was going to be here and I was going to be talking about this. And I said, man, just tell me what the impact was of the project. And he said, I felt simply lost and part of nothing. But this was bringing awareness to homelessness at a public level. It brought me out of this area of hopelessness. He said that he was encouraged in the midst of homelessness, and I needed to use, he said, to feel optimistic. This project made him feel optimistic and trying to get out of a bad situation. And then he talked more about kind of our relationship. You know, he's had meals with me and my kids and my wife. David's helped us in other mission projects and giving back and serving the community. He's going to help us with one coming up in just a few weeks, where we're going to do like a great outreach for the men and women at the homeless shelter, and we're going to just spend some time with the guys, and we're going to play cornhole with them, and then the women are going to get their hair done and get their nails done. So like it's going to be really cool, and like it's just a series of relationships, and so it's special. And I want other people to have the same kind of thing in their life, because it's not a project. Like David's not a project. He's not a goal. He's a person that needed help and encouragement. And I believe that if it wasn't for some people that were right around him, and I'm not saying me, I'm saying that there's 3 or 4 other key people in his life that David would probably not be here if they didn't step in and help him, because he's an alcoholic and he knows that. And he finally will admit that. And he's moving past that. So that's a little bit about kind of where we've been and where we're going. Man, I have no idea. I was in 106-degree weather today at the hot springs, and in the water, and then it's like -6 outside. And I never expected to be there before. So I have no idea where this project is going to go. But I do know that every project has been special and different. And the community of homeless, they're different in every place. And the things that you've seen here that Sarah's going to talk about are different than any other place that we've done this. And the platform of a crude little camera has made a huge difference in some people's lives. And that's been really exciting for me. As a photographer, I had never had my own personal exhibition. And I've been doing photography now for like 20-something years. And I had the Through Our Eyes exhibition first. And like that's the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. I did have my own street photography exhibition a couple years ago. And like I was standing there looking at everything, and it was really neat. It was pictures that came literally from continents around the world, but like it didn't compare to seeing these other people's photos on display. One woman said, "I've seen my kid's picture on a wall, but I never would have thought that my picture would have been on the wall." And so I hope as you guys hear from Sarah and get a chance to absorb some of these, like these mean so much more to me now that I've seen some of this stuff, like buildings and places. Like I get it. And so I hope that you'll connect with them as well. And Sarah's going to talk to you about some other ways that you can maybe help and get involved with this online too, with Hearts for Art campaign that's going on. So I'm going to let Sarah go and have a word with you guys. She's done an incredible job of taking this project and translating it to Fairbanks. And so if you guys will welcome her, I want to turn it over to her and give her the spotlight. She's so great.
Thank you so much for being here. So, okay, clicking it the right way. I wanted to talk to you specifically about the Through Our Eyes project in Fairbanks and how we did that. But first, I want to tell you how we got there. So I was doing a lot of advocacy work in our community about homelessness. And the first project that I did was called My Home in My Hands. And I was photographing portraits of people who were experiencing homelessness, and I asked them, what is the most important object that you have? What's the most important thing in your life? And I discovered that despite being homelessness, despite losing maybe all the worldly possessions that they have, almost every single person keeps one thing that is so important to them. And that thing usually was given to them by someone who made them feel very loved. And I look at these objects like hope talismans. And through that project, I met Felicia Kavanaugh. And Felicia then rolled me into the next thing that I started doing, and I started documenting her life. And she allowed me to come along with her through her journey out of homelessness. And here she's depicted at the Fairbanks Rescue Mission. She was a programmer, so she had a designated space. This is her bed. She has pictures all over her wall. Part of her wall is dedicated to people that she loves, her family. The other part of her wall is dedicated to people who have died, who she's known, who's been in her life, many of which have been homeless. Here Felicia was reminiscing about a moment that she had at her mother's funeral. Felicia likes to carry all of her coins that she's earned from Alcoholics Anonymous on her person. She says, "I like to feel the weight of my decisions on my body." Felicia also has 2 children, one of which was at the Fairbanks Correctional Center, and we were on the bus here headed to visit him. And the more time that I spent with Felicia, I've had the pleasure of being able to spend quite a few years with Felicia now, there was something missing from the project. I had all of these different, really intimate personal stories about people and their belongings, who they were as a person, what was important to them. And then we got to take a deeper look at Felicia. What's her life like? What are some of the specific challenges that she's experiencing? But what we were missing was, what about other people? Felicia was one person, and for me, she was really the face of homelessness interior, but there are others out there too. And so that's how I started coming across, doing this research, figuring out, well, what else is out there? What photographs exist of people who are homeless? And I was really disappointed by what I found. What I found predominantly were photos that were taken by photographers or of people, and it was usually of someone who was unconscious, maybe passed out on the street. And I thought to myself, what does that tell us about homelessness? Does it tell us anything? And then I found Jason's project, the Through Our Eyes project. And I was so filled with joy and excitement when I found the project, because I thought, this is exactly what I'm missing from this larger body of work that I'm doing. The voices of many, but more importantly, from the people who are experiencing homelessness. So they can say, this is what I want to show you. This is what's important to me. This is something from my life. Instead of me saying, well, I'm a photographer, let me take a story of your life. Let me show you what's important. Let me get it from this angle. And it was so important to include their voices and show what they wanted to show in the way they wanted to show it. So we distributed cameras at Stone Soup Cafe in August of this past year. And the requirements were pretty simple. Take pictures of whatever you like, because anything that you take a photo of is the right answer. So are you experiencing joy? Show us joy. Is there something that's tough for you? What is that? What does it look like? Who are your friends? Who do you care about? Where do you stay? We want to see everything. And so we distributed care bags, we sat down and talked with people, and it was about getting to know them. It was about building relationships with them. We had a couple of my photographer friends on site for the specific people who were like, well, I'm not an artist, but that's okay. You're you, and so that makes any photo that you take right. And so we ended up handing out about just over 30 cameras. And we wanted them to have them for about a week and then return them back to Stone Soup. For projects like this, typically the return rate is about 50%, maybe lower. And usually a lot of times you have the opportunity to work with an organization where these people might stay, kind of like the Fairbanks Rescue Mission, for example. There's a lot of touch points for those people. So they have people who are checking in with them. But at Stone Soup, many of these people actually live on the street. And so those touch points don't really exist. So our return rate was much lower than that 50%. But every single person who I met afterward, after the week was over, And I said, hey, do you have your camera? And they're like, no, it got stolen. Or someone else told me, no, I traded it for food. There are a lot of different reasons why some of them didn't have their cameras. But I said, well, what did you think of the project? And every single time they lit up and they said, it was so much fun. I'm like, good. That's what it's about. So for those people who are interested, I took their portrait. And those portraits are displayed over here on this wall. And I wanted to make sure that we saw their faces, that we got to see who they are. And they were so vulnerable with me. They smiled, they laughed, they made their best silly face, their best stern face, and everything in between. And this is the group of volunteers that helped me make it happen. We had one person kind of at each station. We had them fill out a couple of forms. We want to know where can we find them if they make it into the project, and a bunch of other things as well. And so this fantastic group helped me make it happen. And these are some of their faces. This is Barbie. She took quite a few of our photos that are here on the wall. And I think something that was really important to remember every time that I photograph people is, even today we were talking to a bunch of different people at Sonstu, and someone was telling me about how his kids are enrolled in school and they're honor students. And he was telling me how well they're doing in school and what their favorite subjects were. And for a moment, you forget that you're talking to someone who's homeless. And I think that's maybe the most important part of this lesson. When we're looking at these images and we're talking to these people, they're people. They're people like me and you. They have kids like me and you. They have moms and dads and people who love them and experiences. And it doesn't make them less than. It doesn't mean that they have less work experience. It doesn't mean that they have less of anything. They have all these memories and all of these things that build up their lives. And their lives are rich. But often they have one thing that they all share in common, which is an obstacle of being housed. An obstacle of whatever. And for each person, it's slightly different. And so, on this wall, if you've gone through the exhibit, or if you haven't gone through it yet, I encourage you to after the talk. But there are a couple squares that are black, just plain black. And these are representative of the homeless children who participated in this project. And due to confidentiality reasons in these programs, we weren't able to photograph those kids. But I wanted to make sure that they were visually represented in this show. Because in fact, about 50% of these photos are taken by homeless children in our community. And so it was really important to me to make sure that they were represented, but also, in a way, it almost was fortuitous that these images were playing, because I think with all the stereotypes that exist in the world of homelessness, kids is not something that we think about. We don't think about children being homeless. And our youngest photographer in this project is 8 years old. And so you're seeing some images from the perspective of an 8-year-old child who's experiencing homelessness. So what do we do to solve homelessness? What do we do? Where do we go next? I think a big part of solving any problem is to think about how to prevent it. So one thing that I had done is I reached out to all the organizations who work with our homeless populations, and I also asked all of the folks who I've been working with directly, if you were to boil it down to one idea, one concept, one thing that could prevent you from being homeless, what would it be? And so they gave me a collection of words that I then turned into magnets. And I had them on this installation that was a house. And as you removed these magnets, they revealed the faces of the people that you were helping. And so all of these are totally different words. We had a safe place, healthy relationships, treatment, affordable health care. All of these were reasons that if they had just not had this one thing, they probably would have been homeless, or maybe it wouldn't have led them down that road. And although all of these things were different words, what I found to be the same among all of them was a sense of community. All of these things involve community. And these were people who lost their community. They were no longer part of the community. They weren't welcome in their community. And what I think is the most joyful thing about the images that we see in this show or they are a group of people who have lost community, but have found community in each other. And so when you look at these images, many of them are people together. They're people sharing things. They're people doing something together. And I think that tells us a lot about where we need to start thinking when we start thinking about how we solve homelessness. And a big part of it has to do with being a community and caring about each other equally. So I ask you today, before you leave, what will you do to build your community? And something that I've tried to tell people before is, you don't have to go to the soup kitchen and volunteer as a way to give your community. You don't have to, give your change to the guy on the street. What you need to do is think about the thing that you're already doing now. What do you do now that you love? Do you read a lot of books? Do you have a book club? Do you, are you a musician? Are you a photographer? How can you turn that into something that you can use for your community? So for me, that was photography. That's what this is for me. This is what I can do to give back to my community. But I challenge each one of you to really think about, what is something I already do? Do you love to garden? What if you turned that into a way for you to help donate whatever grows from that garden to Stone Soup? Or what if you're a musician and you played a concert and then took a donation at the door and gave that to your favorite charity? It doesn't even necessarily need to be centered around homelessness, but the idea of building your community is important, because really whatever we build is what we'll reap. And so I hope that you'll leave with that tonight, and I thank you so much for being here.
So there's little things that come up and make your day. And so my day was just made because Annette, the Peace and Love woman, she liked some of the photos on Instagram that I took of the gallery. So I love that she saw it, because she's a big reason that this project continued to go on. She won our very first ever show. And I just loved the interconnectivity of that. It's like some weird Inception thing that she's liking the photos of the project that she helped start, really. And you want to tell people about the hearts?
Yes.
And eat cookies.
So on this fabulous table with all these delicious cookies and the perfect, clear, distilled water, we have a really kind of fun thing that we're doing. It's a campaign called Hearts for Art. And it's a national campaign, actually. And what you do is you pick your favorite, fanciest heart. Some have glitter, some have shiny other things on them. Pick your favorite heart. And you're going to go around in the gallery and find your favorite piece, or favorite groups, or whatever it is that really captures your heart. And you hold that heart in front of that piece, snap your photo, and then you're going to post it on your social media of choice, or send it to your mom, or whoever it is that's important to you. And we hope that you'll tag the Fairbanks Arts and use the hashtag #HeartsForArt, and then place that heart on the floor in front of the thing that you chose. And so we hope to kind of fill this gallery with hearts, and you pick your favorite Valentine of art to be your Valentine for this Valentine's. Do you guys have any questions for us before we get on and going and eat cookies and heart our artwork? Yes, in the back.
When I talked to